Hello guys, my name is Lucas and welcome. Today we're finally going to be learning how to make skills for our game. I have a short to-do list here. We're going to start by creating the skill book, which is going to be the UI that holds all of our skills. We are going to have a skill class, which is going to be the base for other skills. And the skill that we're going to be focusing today on is Rage, which is an active skill that the target is oneself, and it increases the damage of our player by a certain amount. We're going to have 4 different types of skills. We're going to have active skills that are automatically target on the player. We're going to have active skills, for example this one, which is Push, which needs to be target to an enemy in order to work. We're going to have Aura type skills, which is an active skill. It can either affect all the enemies nearby, or it can affect all the friendly units nearby, including oneself. My cat is saying hi, guys. And the last one is passive skill. So this one you don't have to use it. Basically, once you learn this skill, it will constantly give you a benefit or a bonus on something. For example, increased walking speed, or if your race is Nordic in Skyrim, you have some cold resistance, if I remember correctly. So those kind of skills are passive skills. Before we continue, I want to deeply thank all of my subscribers and especially thank my patrons. Thank you so much for your support. I wouldn't be making these videos if it wasn't for you. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. Now let's continue with the video. So our skill book is going to be very similar to our inventory. So we're going to duplicate our inventory and going to rename it as skill book. And we have the inventory controller script. Let me change this back to normal. We have the inventory controller script. We're going to duplicate this and we're going to call it skill book controller. And we just need to change the name here. Skill book controller, and inside here as well. We're going to modify this later. Basically what we're going to do is replace every item for a skill, because skills are going to be very similar with items, and you'll see why in just a second. Okay, so in my scripts folder I have a skills folder. So let's drag this skill book controller inside the skills folder. So everything related with skills, we're going to put it here. And we're going to create a new C# script, and we're going to call it skill. And why is my computer so slow today? Let's call it skill. And this is going to be the base class, just like we have the item class. This is going to be the base class for all of our items. So if we go to the skill book here in the hierarchy, you will see that we have the slots, and inside we have a sword inside the first slot, because this was just the previous inventory. So we're going to rename this sword. I'm going to call it Rage. That's the name of our first skill. And here I'm going to remove the item script, and I'm going to add the one we just created, skill script. And I'm going to change this icon for this one that I downloaded from the internet. This one, super rage face. So this is going to be the icon of our skill. And now we need to set some variables inside our skill class. So skill class needs to be very similar with item. So we know it's an clickable because we can drag it around in the inventory. And the same goes for skill. We can drag it around our skill book. So, oops. So let's copy that there, and we need to implement the interface. So just implement it. And remember to remove all these errors, because they can actually affect your game if they get thrown at you. And it's really annoying. So we have the clickable functions, and we need to create some variables that are going to be used by the skills. So for example, a skill can have a skill level. So public int skill level. It also can have a public int mana cost. Let's call it mana cost. we can have a public float, or it can be an integer. Let's make it a float. Cooldown time. Cooldown time is how long you have to wait before you can use the skill again. And we also need a public sprite icon. This is going to be the icon of the skill. I don't know if it's called icon or sprite or whatever. You can call it whatever you want. And what else? Oh yeah, I remembered one. We want to have one here, public string, but I want to hide it in the inspector. And this is going to be the description. And this is what's going to be shown to the player if they want to know what the skill does. And also we need to have another hidden variable called max level, and it's going to be an integer. If we go back to Unity, you'll see that this skill, which, well, is actually just the base, so we should not put this here, but later we're going to replace it with the rage skill that we're going to create. So let's create another C# script, and this time we're going to call it rage. Now this time rage is going to inherit skill instead of mono behavior. And we're also going to implement an interface, which is, if you guys remember, IUsable. And what IUsable let us do is place this skill inside our hotkey bar, and then we can use the skill from the hotkey bar. So it's very similar with an item. Now let's implement the interface. We got this sprite image, which is the image used when we put it in the hotkey bar. And what we need to get from here is simply get return icon, and then set will just return. And I always forget how to set properties. Do something like that. Like this. I always forget this, sorry guys. Yeah. So if we get this, the image, we're going to return the icon that we set in the skill. And if we set it, nothing's going to happen. Now, here is where we want to call the function to give us our bonus attack damage. So, and use is going to be called by the hotkey bar controller. So we don't need to actually call it ourselves. So let's get rid of this exception here. And we're going to do some pseudocode first. So increase the damage, increase the bonus damage. We also need to start a cooldown routine. And the cooldown routine, what it does is it blocks us from using the skill again, and it waits for a time so that we can reuse the skill after a certain amount of time. That's it. So how we're going to increase the bonus damage, we need to do that inside a coroutine as well, because we need to wait for a time. So let's set the description first. Description equals to what the skill does. So in this case, we're going to increase player damage by 5 times skill level, and let's do it for 5 seconds. So increase player's damage by 5 times skill level for 5 seconds. So we want to wait for 5 seconds, and then we want to decrease the player's damage by how much we increase it in the first place. So let's make a routine here. IEnumerator increase damage. And here we're going to get the player controller .main. We have a variable called bonus damage. And if you see this variable is used in the formula to calculate the attack damage. So the damage that we deal to the enemies is considering the amount of bonus damage that we have. So if you want to give bonus damage to your character, I suggest you use this, because if you change the base damage, then if you have any percentage bonus, it's going to be affected by all your other bonus, and it's going to get really messy. So back to Rage. Player controller domain, the bonus damage plus equals 5 times skill level. We have that from the base class, and that's it. Then we will wait for 5 seconds, yield return new, wait 4 seconds, 5. And finally, after the 5 seconds have passed, we're going to do the same that we did up there, but we're going to subtract instead of add it. Now that's the increased damage routine. Now we need a cooldown routine. So enumerator cooldown routine, and it's going to be something similar, but we need to have a boolean that will tell us whether or not we can use the skill again. So here in the base class, we're going to make another variable, and it's going to be a boolean, and I'm going to call it is cooling down. So if it is cooling down, we're not going to let us use the skill. So here, back here, cooldown routine. When we start a cooldown routine, we want to tell our script that, hey, you're going to be cooling down right now, so it's true. And after, return new, wait 4 seconds. And after the cooldown time, so I don't know how much you need in order to cool down, but after you cool down, the player is going to be able to use you again. That's the cooldown routine. And inside here, we can call the cooldown routine. So start coroutine, cooldown, not time, cooldown routine. So we start a cooldown routine, we do what we have to do, and after the cooldown time, we're going to be able to use these again. So everything must start from here, from use, right? So we're not starting the cooldown routine here. We're starting it from increased damage routine. And here, increase the bonus damage. So increase damage routine, we need to start it. So start coroutine, increase damage routine. And there you go. But before that, we need to have a if is cooling down, then we're going to return, so that we cannot call the same skill many times and keep adding bonus and over and over and over again. So finally, I think this rage skill is completed. So I hope this is clear. We don't need this update function. Oh, by the way, here in the start function, we can also set the max level. So maybe you want that every time you level up, your character can increase the level of a skill by 1. Then you should, of course, set a maximum level. So I'm going to set the maximum level for this as 5, because we don't want to have an unbalanced game. Now that this is ready, we can actually see here in our skill book, we can actually replace this skill script. We're not going to use the base class, of course. We're going to remove it and add the rage skill into here. And we're just going to use the same super rage phase as the icon. The skill level is going to start as 1, because if it's 0, we're going to multiply our bonus damage by 0, and it's going to be nothing. And the cooldown time is going to be something like 10 seconds. And that's it. So 10 seconds for cooldown. Mana cost, we're not doing that yet. But basically what we need to do is check if the player has enough mana before we use it. And if the mana of the player is more than the mana cost of the skill, we subtract the mana from the player and we use the skill. That's it for the skill. Now we need to work on the skill book controller, because if we play this now, this is not going to be working because our skill book controller is trying to find an element that contains an item script inside, but our rage doesn't contain an item, it contains a skill. So let's fix that right now. We're going to remove the inventory controller from the skill book. So we're going to drag this skill book controller on our skill book. Let me check that this is correct. Okay. And we're going to edit this. So as I said earlier, we're just going to change every item here for skill. So what we can do, if we're confident, and I am confident that there's going to be a problem, we can use Control H and just find all the items and replace them with the word skill. But before you do that, you need to make sure that you match the case, because if you don't match the case, sometimes you have item with a capital, sometimes you have item with a small letter. Because of different scopes, we use different naming. So we will use match case and find all the items with capital and replace it with skill with capital. So we replace all, and there is 44 occurrences. Now we need to find item with small I and replace it all with skill, and there should be 25 occurrences. Okay, great. So there are some errors as you see there, so we have to see what's going on. And now we are getting the component skill, and before item used to have a property called quantity, but skill doesn't have that. So we need to remove this, and we also didn't have quantity text on our skill as we did in item. So we are going to select that as well and delete it. And down here, item has the function add, but our skill doesn't have the function add because we don't have quantities. So we just get rid of that, and that gets us rid of all the errors. Now, if we go back to Unity, we should be able to drag this, because right now our skill book controller is trying to find a object with a skill component, which it does in fact have within it. So now if we play it, we should be able to drag it and place it on other places. If we have different skills, we should be able to swap the skills between them, and we have to place it here. And then it's an error. We place it, but the skill icon is not defined. Okay, this was a tag, and it used to be called, yeah, we had a tag called item icon, and because we use find and replace, we also changed what was here in the tag. So we could change the tags. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to keep calling it item icon. So let's play it. Now we can drag it here still. Yeah, no problem. Now we drag it into the hotkey bar, and boom, no errors. And now the moment of truth, we need to see if this actually increases our bonus damage. So remember, it's in the first slot of our hotkey bar. We just need to press 1 in order to test it. So we're going to see the player, and if you go to the player in the player controller, if you use the debug mode, you can see here it has a bonus damage. So bonus damage should increase by 5 if it works. So let's press 1, and it did work. Great. And if we press it, okay, so it turned back to 0, and we are not able to call it again because of the cooldown, and now 10 seconds went by and we can press it again. And if we see the skill here, we select this over here, and rage skill, you'll see that right now it's not cooling down, so we should be able to use it, and it's cooling down, and after 5 seconds, after 10 seconds, sorry, we should be able to call it again. Nice. And as I showed you in player controller, we're actually using the bonus damage in the formula to calculate the attack damage. So now the last thing we have to do is go find some mummies, and I want to kill the mummies quickly. So I'm going to level up my rage skill. I'm going to make it level 5. So now it should give me 25 bonus damage. I know I said the maximum level was going to be 5, but let's do 10 because we are the GM of this game, so we can do whatever we want. And let's try it with some mummies, shall we? So now that this skill level is 10, it should give us 50 bonus damage instead. So first, let's see if it actually gives us 50 bonus damage. In here, bonus damage, we press, let me drag this here. We press 1, and there we go, 50 bonus damage. So if you do this, you can add some nice particle effect when you use your skill. Add some sound effect, an animation, whatever you want. But now let's do the quest. Please go and examine the water well. So we go and examine the water well. The water well is empty. I need to... and I knew something weird was happening. Please, blah, blah, blah. And clank, I should hurry. Check the well. And we talked with this guy. Good job. Check the well. Oh, something's coming. Okay, let me get away from these guys. No, they're all together. We're going to kill them all at once. So let's use rage and kill them with one strike. Oh, there's a lot of errors. Okay, this is what I was talking about. When you implement an interface on some script, make sure to remove these exceptions. Just leave it empty, because when it throws an error, it's going to stop your code from executing and it's going to break other stuff. So I was so excited and it interrupted my excitement. But anyway, let's try it again. Play. We're going to do the quest really quickly. So we talk with this guy, talk with this thing, talk with this guy, and talk with this thing, and talk with this guy, and talk with this. And let me put my rage here first. And we talk with this thing, and there are the mummies. And now if I try to kill the mummy, I need like 1 attack, 2 attacks, and it dies. But if I use my rage skill, I'm going to use my rage skill, and then I'm going to hit it once, and it didn't die. Maybe 50 bonus damage is not enough to kill it. Player, do I have the bonus damage? I press 1, I get 50 bonus damage, die! Yeah, I think it's not enough to kill it with 1 strike. But at least we fought the mummies, and you get the concept. So we get our bonus damage from our skill rage. You can play around with different things. You could increase your defense, you could increase your HP, maybe you could decrease your HP by 50% but give you a crazy amount of damage. Who knows? It's your game. You can do whatever you like. And that's it. We did it. We made our first skill. We made a rage skill, which is a self-target buff. Next, we're going to make a push skill that is going to push an enemy backwards a few blocks or a few units. But for that, my friends, we need to wait for the next episode. This episode is started to get too long. But hey, please go try ahead. Tell me what kind of skills you are going to make. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Again, thank you so much for watching, and remember please to subscribe to my channel and like this video. I will see you all on the next one. Goodbye guys. Peace.